I have the honor today to interview Tony Fishel and Alta Graham. They share some interesting background because both Tony and Alta have co-authored books with a teaching parent. And both of them struggled with dyslexia and have overcome it in their own ways. And I think we're going to find out a whole lot about how that process works. So here's Tony Fishel's book. This is well worth reading. Here's Alta's book, which she co-authored with me. And this, both books are about learning how to read when you're very, very dyslexic. So let's start out asking Tony a question. How and when did you learn to read?
I really didn't learn how to read myself, like without the assistance of an audiobook or something. Probably when I was in my late 20s. I had been given a book by my uncle, a Richard Dawkins book, that I couldn't find on tape. I really, really wanted to read it. It was kind of geared towards children, so I didn't feel overwhelmed. Kind of like forced my way through it and figured out that, I enjoyed doing this. I was interested in Dawkins enough to try some of the other books. Before I knew it, I was reading hardcore nonfiction science books, which was pretty cool.
It certainly is. And so is the fact that you made it all the way through school without being able to read. That's impressive. Alta, how and when did you learn to read? I know this is very different.
Well, as to when, you might actually have a better idea than me, but probably 7-ish. After the failure of many phonics programs, which did absolutely nothing, except frustrate both of us. You gave up on the phonics, we sat on the couch and you read to me for hours and hours. And I sat next to you and looked at the pages that I couldn't understand. And after a while, they started making sense. And still didn't think we'd gone anywhere. But I kept picking up books because that's what people did and staring at them. And eventually decided I wanted to read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And that time I picked it up, and a few hours later I finished it. And after that, reading was never a problem again.
And my memory matches yours, Alta. It was a very sudden shift from I do all the reading to suddenly Alta's in a corner with a book and she's in a different world. So Tony experienced reading at a much later age. You experienced reading earlier, but with really no less difficulty. It was an extremely difficult process if you count the phonics not working over and over and over.
Well, if you're talking reading phonetically, I still can't.
Tony, can you chime in here and say, now that you do you read phonetically? Do you sound out words?
Well, I don't know if it's because there's always been a part of me that is kind of like a devil's advocate. Whenever anybody would tell me a rule about reading, I would always kind of be focused on the places where it didn't make sense. And there are more times where the rules are kind of broken and it wasn't as helpful. Especially with the way that my brain worked. And when I start down the path of like trying to sound out a word, it ends up potentially taking me down this long path where I've already started now to forget a little bit about what the rest of the words mean and like fumbling around and getting like aware of the fact that like, this is taking too long. And getting anxious.
And Dr. Marion Blank would back you up with that. She's shown that 60% of the words on any English page of text do not follow phonics rules. So of course it's frustrating, especially to an analytical thinker. If you could go back and talk to your teachers when you were in elementary school, is there one thing you would tell them that would help them relate better to a dyslexic student?
I'm trying to be realistic and trying to think whether or not if a future version of me could have changed the way that I behaved. You can kind of give teachers and people information. It doesn't always translate to like a change in their behavior. There was a whole bunch of teachers when I was young that didn't even believe in dyslexia. So like me being like, here's more stuff about it, like I don't think would have helped. There might have been other ones that were like, all right, give me all like the information that you can. And for them, I would have said, you should be able to either compress it to a single page of notes. Like there's no reason to be going through notes and notes and notes and notes. And then like providing an audio version of all of the information, like not really forcing somebody to read something if it's the content of the information that's important, not the act of actually reading.
Oh,
It's weird. One of my children does voice to text with everything, and the other one doesn't. And one of them is better at spelling. The one who writes himself is better at spelling. But the one that does voice to text, I think, does a better job of communicating sometimes.
Now, Alta, I took you out of school in first grade and they said you were uneducable anyway. I figured I couldn't do worse than that. So what would you tell me to change if we went back in time?
Yeah, hindsight is 2020. I guess don't bother with the 3 expensive phonics programs.